Hello and welcome to yet another video related to prelims examination. In this video, we are going to talk about what you need to cover as part of your last moment preparation. You can combine this video with a previous video which we had on trends of questions, because both these videos will give you a clear idea as to what should be your focus area in the last month of your preparation. So here we are going to first discuss something in general, that is as part of last moment revision. You should be focusing mostly on the factual content. Understanding is done already, right? Don't get into explanation, description, all those kind of literature in any of the areas of syllabus. Just focus on the very specific concrete information. Most of these information is something which is available to you in the form of tables or charts or flows or organized schematic information. Wherever, in whatever sources, compilations, you can find it out. Just try to focus only on those areas, because in all this time you already have developed a conceptual understanding. Also, you also have developed a descriptive understanding on various issues. So please be very focused. Now getting into in terms of different disciplines, like for example in economics, what should be doing, like you can just do a quick revision of the economic survey, the summary, and also the budget for that matter. Summary of economic survey, I repeat that it is already available in the Telegram channel of the Academy. You can go through all those, or maybe you can do that also selectively, because what we have covered is quite comprehensive. Like we haven't left any of the issues over there. So you can select some more important chapters, or the areas which you feel you are weak at, or you haven't covered, or something from which more questions are being asked. You can relate with the previous video. Focus on those areas of economic survey. Also, in case if you are not have a good understanding, or certain areas, certain chapters like definitions, basic concepts and formulas, compositions are not clear, please try to. I will rather suggest that two areas like banking sector, capital market, money market, and also the external sector, where there are a lot of technicalities related to concepts, definitions, compositions or formulas, please revise all those things, because there may be certain statements or certain questions specifically related to them. Then what you can also be asked is the interrelations among the economic parameters and concepts, and maybe something related to trends, which you will anyhow be covering from the economic survey. As far as ancient history is concerned, ancient, medieval and modern history, all of them, one thing is very clear, that while you study any history, please always keep into account the chronology of events. It should be falling in your mental map all the time. Whether it is related to any of the events, establishment of organizations, certain happenings, whatever, it should be very clear to you. So please be very focused over there, and maybe you can purposely do a revision from that perspective also. And specifically in ancient history, the questions, as I had already mentioned, are being asked from these areas. So please do revise all these areas, like Indus Valley Harappa site, inscriptions of Ashoka, and Buddhism and Jainism, these chapters, because we have seen that every year there are questions on these areas. Do a lot of map and relationship of different empires, the emergence of dynasties or empires in different times, spatial relationships, like we can do historical sites, extent of these empires, spatial relations among empires as part of map. So if you are good in map, and you can, in your usual atlas itself, all those small maps which are given related to history, it should be mapped in your mind, like the extent of all the empires, because many a times by overlapping those maps, right, or by the extent of the empire of different empires, we can get onto the apply some reasoning and get onto the correct options in the answer. So it's very much possible. So take maps very seriously in your last leg of preparation. Of course, for geography you will anyhow be doing it. I will tell you that detail as well, but in history also try to focus on that area. Then of course on architecture in ancient times there are frequent questions, and literature also. So these two areas, or these two chapters specifically, you can focus. Let's move on to the medieval history. In medieval history, of course, maps, I won't repeat the same issues which you have to be very careful about. In fact, in medieval history, maps are even more important than ancient history. Then literature in medieval times, not many times we see questions on the bhakti movements. Many a times a question is there. Revenue administration, as I already mentioned in the previous video, and also the conquest of different emperors and nobles, because all these nobilities, they were fighting to acquire the major expanse of the territory, and events related to them. So there are questions, many times there are events related to chronology of these events or the emperors as they have come in sequence. So please take care of these things. In modern history, of course, this is like all those distincts. I would rather say focus more on modern history because more questions are likely to be asked. Don't miss out on anything on all the acts which were there, right, from the beginning, 1600 Charter, East India Company, till the Government of India Act of 1935. All the acts should be very clear to you because many times we have seen more than one question, sometimes two questions are even asked. Pacts, agreement, proposals, like whatever British has proposed or whatever Congress, International Congress has proposed, and whatever pacts they have reached at different times, the details of these pacts also often question is asked. Sometimes whenever the acts question is not there on acts, then there is a question mostly on these agreements and proposals. Question on movement, very distinctly, please understand, or you should have a tabular information on all the movements specifically related to what had been the social base, what had been the geographical extent, what particular class section of the society got involved, what is the political ideology, what strategy was followed, and who were the leaders. This tabular information should be there related to all the movements, very clear to you. Then organization and leaders, like all organizations established of any type, it may be related to press, it may be related to education, social work, it may be related to all the political organizations, all these organizations and their leaders, as much comprehensively as you can prepare, because you have seen that they will always ask you something which you have not studied, right? So it is better to not focus too much on mainstream, you already know. Now the time when you can, get into from anywhere, I mean whatever sources you are following, I'm not very sure, you can get into all those peripheral areas and cover as many organizations and their leaders. Factory establishment, but this is not very important, I just mentioned it because sometimes the question is asked. Viceroy and Governor Generals, their era, what all happened during their time, and remember their tenure also. You can easily relate and answer some questions by reasoning. Literature during the British time also, and especially related to publications, the vernacular press, who's publishing what, often questions are asked. Every year we see some questions. These are the important areas which you can focus in the last leg of your preparation. You can be even more selective with respect to that and focus only on concrete information, focus on those information which you have not studied. I won't say that don't diversify your sources now, because now it will be very difficult for you. Rather, when you are revising, focus on those areas which you may have left as part of a revision, especially the factual information. And in culture, of course, get into all the tabular compilations as far as possible, like in whatever books or compilation you have, as many tables, comparisons which are given, right, similarities, differences, try to cover as many, because that helps you to even remember the features of different art forms or architecture or so many schools of expressions and so on. Temple architecture and art form, these are two more important areas because more questions are asked from these areas. Then in polity, what will you revise in polity? Maybe I have mentioned something very different while I discussed with you the trends of the question, but in polity, when you will revise in the last, especially in the last week, I would say, you should revise all important articles from PM Bakshi or any of the Bayer Act you are following. All important articles, pick up important and please follow, because many a time we have seen that they pick up the the statements from the article itself, some of those clauses itself, and give it as a question. So please do revise. This itself would help you a lot, because all the issues now it's there in your mind. You cannot just go on to revise the issues or other nitty-gritties, but please be very clear about the provision, exact provisions what have been given in the Constitution. That's important. Second thing is, please look into important amendments. Of course, all important amendments of all the years, but especially whatever has happened in past 5 years, and get into the details of those amendments also. Schedules of the Constitution, all the details, because often we have seen one question is there. If not every year, every second year we see there is a question on schedule of the Constitution. Details of the static part which are related to current issues, you are well aware of this. So please don't miss out on that. If you have already missed something, please try to cover that. But be very focused on specifics and technical areas to be covered now in the last leg of your preparation. In geography, focus as much on map as possible. Give 1 hour every day to the atlas. It's a must. I mean, detailed maps also, like you are studying India, you should get into the entire spatial extent of India, physiographical terms in every which possible, the relief maps which are given in details, those anyhow you will do all the smaller maps of India, right? As many smaller maps which are given in the atlas on India, which is creating an impression in your mind, some kind of mental maps, whether it is related to the distribution of climatic factors, whether it is related to distribution of biogeographical factors, or distribution of minerals, distribution of vegetation, any kind of distribution, you need to overlap those maps, have those maps in your mind. You need to overlap those maps one over the other and answer so many questions without actually getting into the literature. So I think that's the best way to learn geography, is to learn through those small maps. Even for that matter, the maps which are there related showing the temperature distribution, maybe in July or in January temperature distribution, or pressure belts, or the pressure distribution, just have an impression in your mind, or rainfall distribution. Just having that impression, and you can interrelate and answer many of the questions by reasoning, because there will be possibility in certain geographies of certain things getting interrelated, overlap. There may not be a possibility in certain regions. That's very important. Same you can do also for the world level also. You see, you can focus on those small maps which are given the continent wise, like 4 or 5 maps. That also impression you can keep in mind, because that helps a lot in answer some of those questions. In fact, even the locations which are given over there and all those smaller maps are important, and you should keep at least that much in mind. In the last moment of preparation, you can just revise all of this, and through that also you can reach to a lot of your answers. Then I think one more thing you can keep in mind is get into the map of the colonies of the past, so that you know that which country was colony of which country. So because this is, I always say this because it helps in answering, developing and understanding related questions on international relations, many a times on current affairs also, because you have this understanding as to what could be the possible country who could involve into this. Or maybe sometimes you also get an agreement, okay, these are the countries which can get into agreements, or these are the countries which will not get you into agreement. Maybe something may be related to their historical past also, or which country was colony of which country, especially when it comes to the relationship between the first world and the third world, or maybe even the second and the third world. Of course, national park, sanctuary, biosphere reserves, the water bodies, rivers, lakes, wetlands, I have already mentioned all of this. These are the important areas which you can cover for geography. Rest of the things depends upon how much time you have and how much you can cover, but these are definite important areas. Natural regions and vegetation zones also, and the maps related to that. Then in environment, of course, the focus should be on important regulations at national and international level. International, there may be fewer, and you may be remembering also, but in national ones, please do get into details of those which were in the news. It's important. Laws, important rules, treaties, protocols. At international level, you will not have the rules. Rules will be mostly at the national level, but be mindful, because nowadays they are even asking questions on rules, or if some changes have been made there. Endangered species and industrial byproducts and pollutants, as I already mentioned in previous video. Cover these areas, because more likelihood that there be question from these areas if you have less time, and obviously you have less time. Science and technology, revise biology comprehensively as you can, focusing on these chapters related to genetics and biotechnology, applied biology, diseases and their causes, and also microorganisms. These are important areas. Then even space technology, if you get time, you can focus on the development in space technology, which is more widespread. See, in the last moment, revising something from communication, digital technology or IT, it will not be very productive, because these are very scattered areas, right? And it will be very difficult for you to gather the information. Focus on where you already have gathered information, compiled information, structured information, technical informations. Focus only on those areas. And current affairs, of course, should be, as much of revision of current affairs should be there as you come closer to the examination. It may happen that sometime they will not ask you direct questions on current affairs, but indirectly the conceptual questions or the questions, it may be related to current affairs, just because something was in the news, so you can easily reach out also to the probable solutions or answers. So current affairs, you should be revising at least from 3 to 4 sources, like 2 major sources which should have covered, and 2 more sources you can flip through and cross check. So there has to be a very comprehensive preparation for current affairs, and last 1 week try to cover and revise as much of current affairs as possible, focusing again on specific factual technical information. Don't get into any details or descriptions, because it's already there in your mind by now. Okay, so I hope that these things, or just keeping these things in mind, will help you. I wish you all the best for your preliminary examination. And please subscribe to the channel for further more videos. Thank you so much.